I feel very, very honored to talk today at this retreat, which seems very serious to me. Oh, look, hello. There have been many, many retreats, and sometimes you behave yourself and sometimes you don't. And I feel it's just a really important and wonderful opportunity for anyone who comes. But my own way of practicing. I mean, I practice like this with the hand movements and all that. But I mean, just in everyday practice, it's very lighthearted. I don't take everything very terribly seriously, which may or may not be, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. And one of the things I've noticed when I hear other people talk is they know the names for everything. The words, the special Buddhist words, or special Sanskrit or Chinese or, Thai words for things. And I really don't. And it's not because I can't, but it doesn't interest me as much. What happens for me is like my practice is just sort of, it's just living. And seeing like where my mind goes about just living. So today, like I knew I was going to give this talk, and my husband, who doesn't walk very well, he has to walk with a walker, and things are hard for him. Like he can't come up here because of the stairs, and it's too burdensome and difficult, and he's not really interested in meditation per se, and. So I went, I would come here and then likely go out to breakfast. So we did that, except that everything was really screwy this morning. and we ended up having a big argument, And it's just interesting to see yourself, when you're saying it has to be this way, or he says it has to be that way. And there's no really good reason for either of us to insist upon our way, or the reason why we are not following directions. But it's that I can observe myself doing it, and then afterwards I have to laugh at myself for being, for being a bully, or for being browbeaten. I mean, we're equals. Let's face it. He gets me every time, and today he won the argument. He won the argument, and yet it's funny. I just see it as something that passes, and it never was like that before. I would really be really bowed down about it and feel bad about it, and I mean I do at the time, but it goes away. It just flows away. It just flows away. And that I attribute that to this practice, that there's a kind of lack of importance of these things. It's just being alive. You say, you let it go, and or else you don't let it go, but it goes anyway, because it doesn't want. It just doesn't have anything in itself. It doesn't exist except outside of my own need to be right, or whatever that is. And I look to this practice not because of what is said about the present and the past and the future, or about desire and form and formlessness, or accord and argument, all those things, all of which are very interesting. But it's just being there. That's and admitting, like when you're being a real dope, admitting to yourself that you screwed up, that that you were wrong, or that you had that little bit of bullying in you, and I'm grateful for it, because it makes my life a lot easier. So much so that I can relax and tell you about it. Because I think the practice is really just, it's a living thing. And sometimes it kicks me from behind. Just, and it's like a person, except that there's nobody there. It sort of like does that to me, or I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to really say about it. All these things happen, and and then they don't happen. But when they happen, it's like there's this great light that fills it, and it's not a light that comes from anywhere. It's not a light that can cast a shadow, for example. It's just that the thing is light, and I can't point to where it comes from. I remember telling somebody that I felt like when we were talking about our practices and things like that I felt like it was in a corridor of light, and it's not like that something is shining somewhere. It's that it's light, and it's everything is immensely clear. And I wish I could say that about my argument today with my husband, that I could be immensely clear at the time, but I was not. Now, of course, I wouldn't have been arguing with him then. But when something bad happens or something hurtful happens, I have been lucky to have that thing that's full of light, which is my mind, I guess. I know I'm supposed to say it's mine. It's mine. But it's like everything is all right because I see it. And that comes from doing this day after day after day for 20 years, over and over and over again. And there's this morning, I believe it was saying that Ajahn was talking. It's not something that you do that makes the things clear. It's that the clarity is already there. It's just all the buzz, and also because you never blah blah blah, all that stuff is in the way. But the clarity is there. It's just there. And I didn't realize it for a long time with this, because I saw beautiful things. There were patterns in the floor, and then I felt like I was swimming in the river, or there was I don't know, walking in the bamboo forests, and so that it was very beautiful. But the fact is that it's there when it's ugly too, and when you get hurt, when like physically hurt or mentally hurt, emotionally hurt, and it's there then too. I had a tooth pulled out a couple of weeks ago. It was a horrible experience. I've had I had one or two taken out before, and it was not a fun thing. But this one was particularly painful and frightening in some sort of way. And what interested me about it at the time, and that's the thing, it's sort of like, oh, I'm interested in what's happening, even though I'm really hurt. He really hurt me, and and it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, oh, this is interesting, because there's this beam of, it's not even a beam, because that means it would start somewhere and end somewhere. It's more like, it's just this light that's like that corridor of light coming at me with this pain. And so I see it as a part of life, of what my life is, rather than oh, this is terrible. Yeah, all the this is terrible stuff also went on, but it was like this light, the shaft that it's just full of light, not coming or going, not brightening or dimming, not making a shadow, just there. And that extraction, which was so frightening and wounding, was part of that. And so I'm babbling, and the reason I'm talking about this is because this is how I see what I get from my meditation and from the talks that we hear and then sometimes that we have to give, and for the ways that that the universe, if I want to call it that, and it sounds very silly in a way, but that it loves me, and that and there are times when I know that that's me, loving me, if me is something that can be used in this situation. We always talk about the self and not having a self, but that's just words. For me, like the diminution of the sense of self comes from it taking it lightly, saying, "Oh, this was a terrible situation, but there's something in it that makes me laugh, or there's something in it that tells me that it's full of this light." And so I try to tell people about my practice, but I can tell that most people aren't interested. Maybe it's that I'm not speaking it properly, but it just seems so remote to people because people are thinking on the psychology and the psychology part of it, like if you learn the reason for this, or you formally forgive somebody in your mind or something like that. It's not like that at all. It's just simply being and feeling okay about it, or wonderful about it, or okay, like it's going to be okay, or it's okay now. And having had an argument today, I could easily say to myself, "You are so bad at this. You shouldn't have to, you shouldn't argue with your husband. It's so foolish and so pointless, and you're such a bully." But then I hear myself thinking these things, and it makes me laugh. I don't know why. I remember Nipan once talking about how the practice had made him so that he didn't, react when people were mean to him, and he was talking to a group at the library in Ridgefield, and he said, yes, people say something mean to me or whatever, and he said, and I just laugh, just laugh, and there was this dead silence where everybody was like imagining what that would be like, and they were just staring and going, "Oh my God," I don't know what they were thinking, but there was no reaction. And then I said, "I think that comes a little later." And then they just laughed and laughed because they thought that basically his non-response was an insult to the person who had just insulted him, and that it was, they would be very angry at his laughter. And they might be, for all I know. It's like if somebody, says, "I'm going to punch you in the face," and you laugh at them. I mean, of course, they're likely to hit you twice instead of once. But he does laugh. He does laugh. And, but he's laughing kind of at his own storyline that that he's been following, I guess. So this is this monk was very kind to me, and he said, "You can talk about anything." So that's what I'm doing. I couldn't come up with anything remarkable, but my own life, which I consider to be remarkable. And I wish I had some provocative thing that I could say that people would then want to talk. But I don't have anything like that. But I am interested in if anybody gives themselves a hard time about not being perfect, or let's not even say perfect, not being really good all the time. I would be interested to know if anybody finds that to be a difficulty in their practice, or feels that the practice doesn't take care of it, or whatever. Anything. Nina.
I can definitely relate to 100% of what you said.
I know.
I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to hear about the practice. They're really missing out as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I've noticed lately that I have this exact same experience, that I will think a negative thought about another person, and then you immediately label yourself as not a good person, or not a true practitioner, or just a ridiculous level of a beginner. What have I been doing here for 10 years? And lighthearted, I mean, I will just step back and look at it and say, okay, well, I did that, or I had that thought, big deal, so what? Is kind of their reaction. And even with, if it goes beyond the thought that you were less than happy with your behavior, I will actually look back at how I behaved and laugh at myself and the stupidity of it, and maybe go into understanding why, but that's just accepting imperfection. That's what that is. And on that one point, there's so many other things in what you said that I can also very much relate to. The experience of light, I really think that's non-self. That's the knowledge that non-self has that we don't, and we can look at our smaller human error-making selves and laugh because of that. So,
it's interesting that you're talking about, what your non-self is. And to me, I think that the self is thought, and when we are without, when I am anyway, without without that kind of thought that carries you, that has an emotional touch to it, or whatever that is. Without that, to me, that's not self. It just means that with a tree that's standing there, I either have something in my mind to say about it, or I don't. And the don't is the not self, non-self. It's just there. And it's not like I can't appreciate it. It's just not, I don't identify with it, and I don't own it. Now I have something to say about ownership. That when a lot of our missteps in life, or unhappiness, suffering, comes because we believe we are in charge. And so I was in charge of my husband today, which was an immense mistake. And that was myself asserting itself. But if I don't own him, then there's really nothing I can do or say that makes a difference, that makes any difference. And I never thought of it as ownership until I found myself trying to control the movement of the seasons that I wanted to be a certain way. And I saw myself holding it back like this. No, it's not time yet for you, October, or whatever. And to see that was an immense revelation, and that comes directly from this practice. There is no question in my mind that could happen, where I would say, oh, I'm in charge of the seasons. That's something of a burden, I would say. You know, this is how we have approached our lives. Like, we either identify with it, like I'm miserable, like that poor animal there or something, or I own it, and I'm in charge, and this is the way it has to be. And if it's not, I'll be unhappy. That's from this, and that's fighting with your beloved. Thank you, Nina.
I think those triggers are good, though, for your growth.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little?
The things that trigger you are the very things that are very good for your growth of your soul. So that, you know, and you can mean to have the argument, you have good intentions, and then there it goes again,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then the one that's you're the one that like feels hurt, because you know you've done your practices and over and over, and all that practice you did, and kind of you want to value that practice over that,
Yeah.
So that maybe that trigger will lessen. And it's I felt very triggered this week by someone, and I was just flabbergasted watching myself, feeling myself upset, and getting so upset because something was missing, and I was looking high and low and all of this, and then it took a while for me to not like just see my situation as how pathetic I'm feeling, and how that this thing that was missing it was a book that's important to me, and just the thought, but then it was just like, wow, this is such a blessing, and I'm like, I worked it out so that no longer, like, I felt like I'm glad that I could be witness to my, challenge emotionally, or even the gripping feeling, or that, and then just like, somehow I feel like I got through it, and then felt peaceful, and then I realized all the times previously that when I lose something, and how upset I get, and I'm just finally figuring out that it's, so it's like a disruption of that pattern, and I really hope that helps you, and that you can just feel victory over that thing that happens over and over again. Like that.
Yes. Well, a lot of this stuff, I think, when we see it, it's the older you are also, and I don't know about you, I can't even see you, but it takes longer because you have a whole lifetime of that, and so you have to weaken it enough so that it will fall apart and go away. They always tell us, and then it won't come back,
Right.
So. Well, I've used up all my time. I don't even know how much time I have.
You have 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Well, I would have liked to have something more dramatic or somehow significant seeming to say, but each of the things everything that happens. I mean, the more when you're present, and that's I remember that's the old word they started using in the 60s or something like that, to be present. And but I mean, it's really true when you just see clearly when it is happening. Just to de-illuminate it with your clear mind is more than enough. And because I think that it just sets things into motion toward a kind of dissolution of all the sorts of patterns that you talked about and all the I don't know, all the feelings. It's just sort of it just disintegrates, so you don't have to do it yourself. I was very and I mentioned this before, I think, reading the teachings of the Chinese master Huang Po, and his whole, in the translation, in the thing that I had in the translation, I don't know if there were more records of what he had to say, but what he said over and over again is stay away from conceptual thinking. And conceptual thinking, he spoke of it as the things that have names, that we name them, that we judge them, that we put a name on it that might cast a certain shadow or might lift up something else. And just stay away from that kind of thinking. And when you think, just think and talk about what happens, what is happening now. And some of the most wonderful Chinese poetry I've ever read, and I haven't read that much, so maybe, but is that it doesn't explain, it doesn't judge, it just says, I'm sitting in my chair now, I'm 69 years old, and the kids are all gone, and my wife stays back in the back of the thing, and I have this place to myself. I mean, that's like a poem. I mean, you're saying, wow, that's wonderful. I feel like I've received something wonderful from somebody who lived in the 10th century. And so I to me, that's very much the way of the clear, unobstructed mind. And so I leave with that thought. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk, making me talk.
Well. You still have 3 minutes left.
I have 3 minutes. It will take my 3 minutes to get this off.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank
What?
Talk about being stuck.
Okay.